Today's video is sponsored by Raycon. Audio horror is a great way to unwind after a long day, but to maximise those spine chills, it's important to be listening through a quality pair of earbuds. And, speaking from experience, you really can't go wrong with a pair of Raycons. With 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, and extra bass, Raycon earbuds have a lot to offer. Their compact design gives you that comfortable, noise-isolating fit, which makes them perfect for work and play. So, whether you're relaxing in a cafe listening to a podcast, working from home, commuting, or just chilling with some true crime and mystery videos, Raycon earbuds are a great tool to keep out all other distractions and stop you from bothering the people around you as well. Personally, I find them to be amazing whenever I'm out jogging. Since I've been stuck at home a lot these days for obvious reasons, I try to go out running every night to keep fit and get some fresh air. Raycon's everyday E25 earbuds have that great sound clarity and bass, which really helps keep me immersed in whatever music I'm sweating to, and helps me push myself that extra mile. Plus, I love not having any annoying wires flopping around and snagging on things while I'm exercising. You all know the struggle. In my experience, you get a lot of bang for your buck with these earbuds, and those bucks aren't even as big as you'd expect. Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and sound just as amazing as any other top audio brands you know. Between work and relaxation, I find myself using my pair every day, which is why they'd make a really thoughtful and useful present this holiday season. Speaking of which, this is the time of year to get the best prices on Raycon products. Head over to buyraycon.com/masquerade, and right now, you'll get a festive 20% off your order. You gotta hurry though, as this offer's only available for a limited time only. Click that link in the description box, take advantage of that spine-chilling 20% discount, and be a part of the next wave of premium wireless audio. So here's a strange little case that's pretty obscure. That of the Barbel. The Barbel was the name of a large transport ship, and back in 1993 when this incident happened, was a very modern vessel. On August 15th of that year, the ship and its 6-man crew were delivering a shipment from London to Rostock in northern Germany. Manning the ship on that fateful voyage were machinist Mikhail Mikhailov, sailor Vladislav Bogdan, helmsman Viktor Varenko, cook Anatoly Smolyuk, Captain Heinrich Teltman, and, most notably for this case, 28-year-old Russian Andrei Lapin. More on him in a moment. That morning, just after the ship departed from London, Captain Teltman telephoned his wife. He told her everything was going smoothly, that the crew didn't have any troubles loading the ship, and that they should arrive in Germany in the early evening. On the next day, when there was still no sign of the ship or her crew, Captain Teltman's wife and others tried tirelessly to contact the Barbel, worried about the safety of the men on board. There was no response. For 3 days, the Barbel was missing. Then, at 10:45 AM on August 18th, it was sighted aimlessly floating in the North Sea, far off its actual course. Soon after, 2 lifeboats were also found by Danish fishermen. One of them was empty. The other contained Andrei Lapin, who, despite being adrift at sea for at least 2 days, was extraordinarily calm. He was conspicuously holding a suitcase filled with 60,000 Deutsche Marks, around $54,000 in today's market. There was no sign of any of the other crew members. When investigators from Denmark got aboard the Barbel, they came upon a gruesome scene. There had obviously been a violent confrontation on board, with evidence of fierce fighting having taken place. They found a huge amount of blood in various quarters, which someone had futilely attempted to wash away. Disturbingly, they also found small chunks of human scalps and skin. Captain Teltman's cabin had been trashed, as if someone had been frantically looking for something. The ship's cash machine had been emptied. There had also been several noticeable attempts to start a fire in certain parts of the ship, and several cans of gasoline were found strewn around. Now, it didn't take Sherlock Holmes to work out what had happened here. Someone had murdered the crew, dumped their bodies overboard with weights attached, taken all the money on board, and tried to destroy the ship along with all the evidence. All fingers were pointing firmly at the sole survivor, Andrei Lapin. Needless to say, the detectives had a few questions for him. Originally, Andre had said that a fire had broken out on the Barbel and that the other crew members drowned in the chaos. He said that he was able to save himself by getting into a lifeboat, and that he took all of the money he could find on board from his colleagues and planned to give it to their families. The investigators then informed Andre that although they had found evidence of someone attempting to start a fire, those fires didn't actually go off, and the Barbel was still in perfect working condition. Andre then changed his story and said that this was all just a huge misunderstanding, before going into a convoluted story about how there had actually been a mutiny on board. He said that 2 crew members who were angry about unpaid wages suddenly picked up axes and started attacking the rest of the crew. The men began fighting for their lives, but unfortunately, the captain and his 2 innocent colleagues were killed in the combat. Andre said that he was able to kill the 2 mutineers in self-defense using their own axes. Fearing that no one would believe his story, he threw all of the bodies into the ocean, started several fires to destroy the ship, and then jumped into a life raft. He now claimed all the money in the suitcase was actually his, and that he had made it from selling traditional Russian religious artifacts. The Danish authorities weren't buying what Andre was selling. They arrested him for the murder of his 5 crewmates. On December 13th of that year, they handed him over to the German police. At his trial, the prosecutors alleged that Andre, motivated by greed, killed his colleagues in cold blood and concocted his unbelievable story in order to literally get away with murder. The captain's wife, who was a witness at the trial, said that when Andre was rescued, he was wearing her husband's watch. All of the evidence suggested Andre was a ruthless killer, and everyone believed this to be an open and shut case. Well, sadly, no justice system is perfect. Because all of the evidence was quote-unquote circumstantial, the prosecutors couldn't prove beyond reasonable doubt that Andre had committed murder. The jury believed it was possible his story was true, that he had acted in self-defense. As such, on February 3rd, 1995, he walked out of court a free man. However, he was given a 1-year suspended sentence for attempting to burn down the ship. Though most agree that this case was actually solved and that Andre was the obvious killer, others aren't so sure. Firstly, they point out that if Andre's main goal was a simple robbery, why would he go as far as to kill 5 men? That's a pretty huge leap to make. Not to mention, the logistics of him butchering 5 grown men with an axe without being taken down himself is questionable. Sure, maybe he picked them off one by one, but being stealthy in the claustrophobic confines of a ship isn't as easy as some people imagine. Maybe he really did act in self-defense. After all, it's much more believable that he was able to kill 2 men with the support of his comrades, rather than 5 alone. Also, if he truly was responsible, the timing of his rampage seems strange. He was miles from dry land, so when he killed everyone and escaped in his life raft, there was no guarantee that he'd ever be found and rescued. Wouldn't he have waited until the ship was closer to its destination? Better yet, why not just steal the money and valuables while the ship was docked in London? He could have gone on the run from there. The risks would have been much lower. Whatever the case, the exact events of those grisly August days remain unknown to everyone. Everyone, that is, except for Andre. So, what do you think? Has this little-known European mystery actually been solved? Or do you too hold doubts about Andre's guilt? Let me know in the comments. As a funny side note, after the trial, Andre applied for another job on the Barbel, which was now owned by the captain's widow. He didn't get the job. Sticking with the year of 1993 now, but let's rewind the clock back to February 1st and take a trip to Yakima County, Washington. En route 24 near Moxie, a man was spotted lying down, dead in the middle of the road. He was middle-aged, wearing glasses, and dressed in a military-style outfit with work boots. There were no substances in his system. He was believed to be the victim of a hidden run, and a Chevrolet Camaro was seen speeding away from the scene around the time he died. Since he wasn't carrying any form of ID on him, his identity remained a mystery. He would stay at John Doe for another 10 years. But that's not even the crazy part. Let's get into it. The day before the John Doe's body was discovered in Yakima County, 1,600 miles away in Amarillo, Texas, Karen Glenn Lewis and her daughter were returning home from a shopping weekend in Dallas. They opened the front door to their home, expecting to find their husband and father, David Glenn Lewis, waiting for them inside. but they didn't. The house was empty. Strange. Stranger still was that David's wedding ring and watch had been left on the kitchen counter. It was Super Bowl weekend, and a tape which had been manually set to record the match was still recording, despite the fact that the game was long over. There were 2 freshly made turkey sandwiches in the fridge. There was no note or anything to indicate where David might have gone. It seemed as if he had left suddenly and in a hurry, but why had he left his ring and watch behind in plain view? The following day, when David still hadn't returned home, on that same morning the John Doe's body was discovered, Karen filed a missing persons report for her husband. The investigators examined the house and found no signs of a struggle or forced entry. It appeared as if David had left on his own volition. That didn't make sense though. David was a devoted family man with a good job, and, as far as everyone knew, a stable state of mind. Their search for David quickly turned up a vital clue. His car was found in Amarillo's downtown area. Under the driver's mat were David's house and car keys. In the glove box were his credit cards and driving license. All of David's personal items were now accounted for. The only thing missing was the man himself. This is when Karen, his wife, told the detectives a vital piece of information. Just before he disappeared, David had confided in her that his life was in danger, but refused to go into details about it, only telling her that someone had been threatening him. This is where his job comes into play. David was an attorney, and even the most amicable of attorneys have enemies. Though we don't know exactly who was threatening David or why, it could easily have been one of his former clients who felt that David had failed them in some way. On top of that, David was a man with strong principles. His law firm were fighting their own case against a wealthy client, and David was scheduled to speak against his own company. He told his own father that at the deposition he planned to tell the truth, whoever it hurt. With the law firm standing to lose a lot of money if David refused to lie, it's possible that they were involved in his disappearance somehow. After digging a little deeper, the investigators learned that David had booked a plane ticket on January 31st, the same day he vanished. This ticket was from Dallas to Amarillo. Wait a second. David's wife and daughter had just come from Dallas back to Amarillo on that same day. David wasn't in Dallas with them. That suggests that he had secretly followed his family to Dallas, although how he got there remains unknown, and then booked a plane ticket so he could get home before them, and make it appear as if he had been at home the entire time. It's unknown whether he made that flight or not. The plot thickened even further when they also learned that he had booked a ticket on February 1st, the day he was reported missing, the day that John Doe was found. This ticket was from Los Angeles International Airport to Dallas. This extremely strange and seemingly nonsensical twist in the investigation took the detectives down a rabbit hole, which led to a dead end. The only other thing they learned was that on February 1st, a man matching David's description got a taxi from a hotel in Dallas to Fort Worth International Airport. The taxi driver said that the man was extremely nervous and fumbled to pay him with a wad of $100 bills. With no other information to go off, the case went cold. 10 years would pass. Then, in 2003, a patrol detective named Pat Didder made a connection between David's case and that of the unknown John Doe in Washington. If you hadn't guessed already, the two men were one and the same. This was confirmed after a DNA test. David was the John Doe who died in a supposed hidden run 1,600 miles from his home. This was a huge discovery. The mystery surrounding the whereabouts of David Glenn Lewis had been solved. But even though that mystery now had an answer, we can't really classify David's case as being complete. There are still a whole bunch of unanswered questions pertaining to his death. Why was he in Washington in the first place? How did he get there? Why was he wearing a military uniform when he died? Why had he secretly booked these bizarre plane tickets? What business did he have in Los Angeles? Did he really book the tickets on his own accord, or was he taken against his will? Did any of this have to do with the threats made to David's life? Was the hidden run really an accident? No one has ever been able to answer any of these questions. Still, the police have discounted foul play, and the investigation into David's case has officially ceased. So, there we have it. The two mysteries of the Yakima County John Doe and the whereabouts of David Glenn Lewis turned out to be one big mystery after all. Still, the puzzle remains incomplete, the unanswered questions being the missing pieces. It's an intriguing case, one that continues to baffle professional investigators and internet sleuths alike, even all these years later. Hopefully one day we'll have some answers, and David's family can have the closure they so desperately crave. Let's end things with a relatively infamous British case, that of Jeremy Bamber, the man who murdered 5 members of his own family. Or did he? The year was 1985. The setting? Tolson Darcy, Essex. At some time on the night of August 6th or the early morning of August 7th, most of the Bamber family were wiped out with a rifle in their own farmhouse. This included Neville and June Bamber, both aged 61, their adopted daughter, Sheila, 28, and Sheila's twin sons, Daniel and Nicholas, both 6. In total, 25 shots had been fired. When the police broke into the locked farmhouse, they saw obvious signs of a struggle, the telephone hanging off its receiver, and, of course, the remains of the family. The only Bamber to have survived the whole ordeal was Neville and June's other adopted child, Jeremy Bamber, then aged 24. Jeremy claimed to have been a few miles away in the family home when the killings took place. At first, the investigators assumed Sheila, the adopted daughter, was the one responsible. She had a history of schizophrenia and was going through a delusional episode at the time of the slayings, saying that the people around her were being influenced by evil. They theorized that, whilst in the midst of this particularly horrific episode, she took out her loved ones and then turned the gun on herself. Someone had carved the words, "I hate this place," into some cupboard drawers in the farmhouse, so it appeared as if she had simply snapped. Case closed, right? Well, not exactly. 1 month after the incident, their suspicion switched over to the only surviving Bamber, Jeremy. Jeremy's then girlfriend came forward and told the police that her boyfriend had been planning to kill his entire family for a long time, and that he knew he could make Sheila the scapegoat. His motivation was apparently a hefty inheritance. His parents often refused to help him out with money, and Jeremy resented this. He was going to take what was rightfully his. She even claimed he had spent time strangling rats to see if he was capable of killing. On the back of her confession, Jeremy was arrested. He told the detectives that his girlfriend was lying because he had just broken up with her, and that he had no interest in his family's fortune. Still, they went ahead and prosecuted him. During the trial, the prosecutors alleged that Jeremy had cycled to the farmhouse in the early hours of August 7th, and, under cover of darkness, entered through the downstairs bathroom window. He took the rifle which the family kept in the farmhouse, attached a silencer, and began to pick off his relatives one by one. He shot his father 6 times in the face and twice in the chest, his mother 7 times, his nephews 5 and 3 times respectively, and his sister twice. The shots had been made from both long and close range, suggesting he finished his victims off up close and then took pop shots at their bodies from a distance. He then arranged the scene to make it appear as if Sheila was the killer, removed the silencer from the rifle, and placed it in the drawer it was usually kept in, the drawer in which the police found it. The prosecutor stated that if Sheila had really been the killer, she wouldn't have bothered putting the silencer back. The reason they believed the silencer had been used in the first place was because of scratch marks found on the walls, which had likely been made by the silencer scraping against it during a struggle. At one point, a truly damning piece of evidence was presented to the court. Jeremy claimed that his father had called him during that fateful night and told him that Sheila had a gun and was going berserk. This call was his main defense. It proved he wasn't at the farmhouse and that Sheila had been using the gun. However, it was determined that no such call had ever been made. Why would Jeremy have lied about receiving such a call if he wasn't in fact the one responsible for the whole ordeal? On top of this, Jeremy just presented himself in a negative light. He'd gone on holiday to America shortly after his family had been wiped out, and during the trial, when a prosecutor accused him of lying, he coldly replied, "That is what you have to establish." Ultimately, he was found guilty of all 5 counts of murder. the judge described him as warped and evil beyond belief, and told him he'd spend the rest of his life behind bars. Well, that's the thing. A lot of people aren't sure that Jeremy actually did it, including forensic experts. Let's quickly go over why a large number of people believe the conviction was a massive miscarriage of justice. Firstly, the testimony of Jeremy's girlfriend is questionable to say the least. She claimed that Jeremy had long been planning the murder of his family, but it's very possible she was lying. The pair had just broken up because she caught Jeremy cheating on her. Only then did she come forward to the authorities telling them he was guilty. Not to mention, she quickly sold her story to a newspaper for £25,000, the equivalent of more than £74,000 in today's money, $100,000 in American dollars. She certainly had a monetary incentive to lie. Add onto that a history of lying in the past as well, and her story starts to become a lot less believable. Secondly, there are inconsistencies with the photographic evidence in the case. The crime scene itself was terribly secured by the police, with plenty of the evidence being tampered with or destroyed outright. Remember the scratches on the wall made by the silencer? Well, these scratches were later proven not to have been made during that fateful night, but as much as a month later. Those scratches were vital in proving the silencer had actually been used. If it hadn't, then it becomes more plausible that Sheila may have been the killer after all. Despite many people professing his innocence, Jeremy Bamber remains in prison to this day. He still denies his guilt. This was a very condensed telling of the White House farm murders. If this case piqued your interest, I highly recommend doing some research on your own, as there's a whole bunch of details I had to leave out for the sake of time. Luckily, there's plenty of information about this one online. It's certainly a case that you can spend hours getting lost in. Happy sleuthing, Lazy Legion. Hey guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to smash that like button or I'll smash you. A huge thank you to Robin Mickelson for making the thumbnail for this video, links to his stuff down in the bio, and also a huge thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon and here on YouTube, especially my biggest supporters. Monica Mendoza, Crawford K. MacDonald, Stieven Schaerlaeken, Tom King, Alex Greensall, Philip Westre, ProCupidineNata, Gina Valera, Charlie Lackey, AnimeWimp, Sarah Ramirez, Sloane Crawford, Nadine, Connor Louthan, Decaying Girl, Sieg, Kyle R, Infamous-senpapi, Alba Medrano, Azrael Warakai, Lord 210, TheOnlyDorita, Ricky Cohen Jr., Aura Dragon 1, Hungry&hammered, Leonardo Martinez, The Lecky, Expand on, Kiwi Grenadier, Phantom Knight, Hamish Kay, and Alicia L. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, it really helps the channel out. That wraps things up for this one, guys. Keep your eyes peeled for the next video, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until then, stay spooky, and remember, the best things happen in the dark.